I'm Jake from the Hobby Desk. Recently, I joined my local game store's Slow Grow Path to Glory game for Age of Sigmar. Pour yourself a cup of something nice, and let's talk about it. Alright, the first half of the campaign was set in Warcry. The goal was to set the stage for the collaborative story of the campaign, allowing for the development of characters that would become the leaders and major figures of our armies, as well as to create connections between the other players' armies. For example, my army, the Sunset March, is an expedition/funeral procession of Stormcast Eternals searching for the means to resurrect a fallen hero. In their travels, they have made deadly enemies with the depravicants of the Horned Lord, Horns of Hashut, and Chaos Army, played by my friend Patrick. But the March has also made tenuous alliances with the Lost Expedition, a Cities of Sigmar Dwarves army, played by my mate Sean. My coverage of that half of the campaign, as well as the intro to my army, will be coming in a later video. Now, the second half of the campaign will be focusing on Age of Sigmar, using a modified set of the Path to Glory rules. Starting in April, we began the Path to Glory game at 500 points, and each month afterwards, we'll be raising that limit by 250 points. Every month, I intend on making a video reporting on my army's progress thus far, the games I was able to play, and my plans for the army going forward. This format was inspired by Doug over at 2+ Tough. Check it out, link below. So, my army so far. So for Stormhost, I've played them as Celestial Warbringers, but for this campaign, I'm going to be playing them as a custom host using the tenets of the Gladiatorium found in the Stormcast Eternals Battle Tome. For Holy Commands, I'll be using Steadfast March. I like the idea of them being able to run and charge, kind of a hammer anvil thing. I've used Thunderbolt Volley, and I really did like that, but I'm going to try and switch it up for right now. And they will be Scions of the Storm. My leader is a Knight Relector named Saint Ansel. For his command trait, he will have Skilled Leader, and his artifact of power at the moment is the Arcane Tome, which has performed a little bit differently than what I would like, and after the errata, our group is allowing us to change it one time, so I might take advantage of that. I am a fan of his Bless Weapons prayer ability, though. It seems like I'll be pairing them with my Sequitors for most of the games. Speaking of my Sequitors, they are the next unit in my army. They have a Sequitor Prime, the champion, who is going to be Capitana Centilli. She's a character from the Warcry narrative. I like this unit's versatility with their Sequitor Etheric Channeling. Getting to punch through a little bit on that unmodified roll of a 6 feels good, as well as having a 5-up ward when needed. I have also put my Knight Relector and the unit of Sequitors in a Vanguard battalion. The next unit in my order of battle is the Forward Company. This is a group of Vigilers led by the Vigilar Prime Ishka. She was the leader of my warband in the Warcry narrative, and I've written a lot of fiction about her and some of her Vigilers. Again, I like the versatility with this type of unit. The ability for this unit to have basically the same weapons profile for melee and ranged is really nice. And their inch of extra movement is handy. And I'm a big fan of the Navigators of the Storm ability. I usually use them first in the shooting phase to kind of combo with my next unit, the Castigators. The Castigator unit, the Cloud Piercers, is led by a Castigator Prime named Caster. Not for lack of creativity, but I like that name. It was a hero in the old Age of Mythology game. This unit's Thunderhead Greatbow has decent range, but also can pack a punch. Also, with their channeling ability, I like to have them pick power to gain that -2 in rend, hopefully firing on the same unit that the Vigilers fired on in the previous part of the shooting phase. Alright, so for April, I was actually only able to get one game in. We played the mission Breakthrough from the Path to Glory Battle Pack. I won the roll-off and chose to play Custodians. I was playing against Josh S. and his Sylvaneth. Josh is a great player, and I had a lot of fun playing with him. He did a wonderful job of painting his Sylvaneth. They have a great kind of spring feel to them, and he's done a lot of really good job, and especially his basing. But he also did not slack on the paint job with these minis. They look amazing. And this was my first full game of Age of Sigmar. I was able to play a practice game a while ago. To start, Josh set up his units on the far side of the board. I set my Warlord on the far left flank, and my Castigators on the far right flank, putting the Sequitors and Vigilers in Azir. Through some tree shenanigans, Josh was able to get his Dryads almost to the far side of the board. But after dropping in my Sequitors and Vigilers, The Vigilers unloaded a volley of arrows, and the Castigators were able to finish off the Dryads. The Secretors then charged into the Kurnoth Hunters and promptly cut to ribbons. Josh's Warlord flew over to support the Kurnoth Hunters. The Vigilers of the First Company started pursuing the Arch-Revenant, and my Castigators came down and conga-lined their way towards the battle. Finally, I foolishly charged my Knight Relictor into the Kurnoth Hunters, fully knowing it was not going to end well for him, but I was hoping to slow their progress in time for my Vigilers to come and back them up. After striking down my Warlord and fending off some of the Vigilers, the Kurnoth Hunters and Arch-Revenant were able to get to the board edge and escape, winning Josh the game. With movement being so important to this battle plan, it really had me focusing on trying to cut off lanes for Josh's units to move through. I was very pleased, though, that my Vigilar Castigator combo of having the Vigilers strike first, scoring a wound, and then giving a +1 to anyone who tries to hit at them, that's the Navigators of the Storm ability, and then having my Castigators switch to power for their Great Bows, and just trying to unload some wounds to them, really worked well. Now for my future plans for the hobbying and planning side of my army. With the points limit increasing for May, and the glory that I was able to store up, I purchased 2 units. I'll be reinforcing my unit of Secretors and adding a unit of Vindictors. I'm really excited to try and buff this reinforced unit of Secretors. I think my plan going forward will have my War Leader kind of follow behind them and buff them, and kind of use that unit as the main fighting force of my army. Having the Castigators provide support, and having the Vigilers and Vindictor kind of playing the objective. I've been able to kit bash and base all of the units that I'm adding. I've primed my Vindictor models, and I still need to prime the Secretors. Also, a number of the models in my army have been based, but their basing hasn't been painted yet, so I'm going to aim to finish that once I add the other units. Overall, I'm really excited to see what the rest of this campaign has in store. I plan on finishing painting all those units over the weekend, and in fact I have my next game planned this Wednesday with Sean. We'll see how it goes. I'll check in next month with everything that's happened, and until then, I'm Jake with the Hobby Desk. See you around.